you signed up to identify and alchemize unconsciousness in yourself so that you can offer healing to the unconsciousness in others, which reverberates light into the collective consciousness and helps raise the frequency. So do you see now, can you connect to the bigger picture, the bigger whole, that not only is forgiveness an act of healing, an act of self-love, but it's also an act of service. So in today's video, we're going to be diving deep into something that I know can be pretty challenging for a lot of us, which is forgiveness. And with this deep dive exploration, I want to offer you some updated mindsets and perspectives, and to consider how forgiveness shows up in the quantum as well, looking at everything from the soul level. So with any spiritual teaching, we are always considering two sides of the coin, looking at it through the lens of ego and looking at it through the lens of the soul. And so before we dive in, I would love to offer you a point of reflection, and I would even encourage you to just pause this video, bust out a journal if you got one, and just take a moment and think about, why has forgiveness been difficult for you in the past? And what is your current definition of forgiveness? Go ahead and pause the video, I'll wait. I ain't going anywhere. Okay, so let's look at ego first, because what I'm about to share is the most common ways that people perceive forgiveness totally unconsciously, right? None of this is any of our faults. This is what we've literally been learned and programmed and conditioned to believe. So number one, usually ego can be resistant to forgiving because it feels like that would be submitting to being treated poorly, like putting up with being treated poorly and accepting what the other person did, like in this passive, submissive way. And so ego will often retaliate by withholding love, right? What do? We close our heart and we withhold love in the forms of anger, resentment, and spite that we then internalize and hold on to. And ego will often defend itself to the death, right? Ego will die on that hill because it's operating from this reward and punishment system. You know, this very tit for tat mentality where you hurt me, so I'm going to hurt you back by lashing out, by blaming you, by closing my heart off and withholding love. And often as well, because ego is caught in this reward punishment cycle and does not take the time often to take accountability for its feelings, ego will spend way too much time being in rumination, blaming the other person for the unhappiness that you're now feeling. And I describe ego versus the soul because the ego identity that you feel like you are is not actually who you are. Who you are is the soul, this eternal love and light, this unconditionally loving and accepting infinite being. That is not your ego. And so when I'm working with people and when I really started on my own healing journey, it really helped me to have some degrees of separation from the mind, which is all of your conditioning, and your ego. And of course, as I'm going into these deep dives, if you ever have any questions, just drop them in the comments. I'm always open to discussing. So now let's consider forgiveness in the eyes of how the soul sees it. So the soul understands this very fundamental principle that anyone who treats you poorly is unhappy. And so the soul sees these behaviors as expressions of unconscious unhappiness. And so to the soul, accepting an apology is so much more than accepting an apology. It's an awareness. It's an awareness of this unconscious suffering. And so then the next logical question would be, does a suffering person need more rejection? Does a suffering person need less love? Or more love? I'm sure you know the answer to that question. More love. And to the soul, when we accept an apology, what we are saying is, I'm sorry that your pain caused you to treat me this way. I'm sorry that your unhappiness has inspired you to try to take some of my unhappiness and make it your own. And that is a beautiful quote from one of my favorite spiritual teachers, Matt Kahn, in his book, The Universe Always Has a Plan. I'm looking at it on my desk. Another thing that Matt Kahn says is that forgiveness is compassion in action. And because we are living in a hologram matrix reality, the degree of unhappiness that someone creates in you is just reflecting back to you suffering that you already had in the first place. So this is the whole idea about resolving triggers. And for those of you watching this that do inner work, which I'm sure is a lot of you, you already know this, right? So the degree of anger or jealousy or whatever it is that is created in you is from somebody else is simply a mirror reflecting back to you. That situation, that neutral circumstance, is simply a mirror reflecting back to you the upset and the suffering that was already present inside. So to the soul, forgiveness is not a way of justifying poor behavior, and it's not passive submission. It is liberation and alchemy. I just realized before I started shooting, I took my earrings off so I could use my over-the-ear headphones, and I didn't put them back on for y'all. Hang on a second, we gotta put the bling back on. All right, yeah, we got the bling on. So when you choose to forgive, it's making the conscious decision to not internalize that other person's pain and suffering in your physical, energetic, or emotional bodies as memories of mistreatments. Because the only way that you're going to retain that pain and suffering is to keep reliving the memory of what happened. Just something that we do when we haven't actually truly made amends and forgiven the other person. As such, when you choose to forgive, you are no longer walking this earth as anyone's victim. So this is how you take your power back. The more forgiving you become, the happier you are. The happier you are, the more you are like your soul. Therefore, forgiveness is an act of self-love. Now consider this. Let's take it a step further. The people who have hurt you the most are the ones who need your forgiveness the most because they are furthest away from their divine light. They are the deepest in their shadow, and they are the most likely to go on inflicting pain on other people, projecting their pain and suffering onto others, right? And on the quantum level, forgiveness is deeply transformational to the shadow because it is a form of love in action, and love is the true alchemist, the true healer. So on the quantum, when you offer this super high vibrational healing energy to someone in the form of forgiveness, it invites their shadow back to the light. It invites them to awaken more of their soul essence, becoming more of their divine light, making it less likely that they will need to project that pain onto others in the future because you have actually assisted in their healing. This is a very zoomed out, very quantum spiritual way of looking at things, but because we live in a universe where everything is energy and vibration, it can be really, really helpful for us to be able to connect to the healing power of forgiveness when we see things through this lens. And again, remember, on a soul level, what forgiveness is saying is, I'm sorry that your pain has caused you to act this way and treat me this way. Okay, let's go one level deeper. Here's the deal. If you are here in the Guiding Light Portal, you in fact are one of the light workers, healers, starseeds here to help transmute the collective frequency and ascend Earth into 5D consciousness. There's just no way that you would have been drawn to my energy otherwise. So as a healer and light worker, what we are here to do is to hold space for the collective shadow as ego gives up its obsession with control. That is another Matt Kahn quote. So as a healer and light worker, you signed up to identify and alchemize unconsciousness in yourself so that you can offer healing to the unconsciousness in others, which reverberates light into the collective consciousness and helps raise the frequency. So do you see now, can you connect to the bigger picture, the bigger whole, that not only is forgiveness an act of healing, an act of self-love, but it's also an act of service. So in order for you to anchor this into your body, I would love to borrow yet another quote from Matt Kahn and try saying this either to yourself or out loud if you're in a space to do it. To really anchor this into your body, say, in forgiving others, I am set free. In forgiving others, I am set free. And see how much forgiveness is truly an act of liberation and alchemy. Now, something I always like to remind people is that this is a teaching, right? This is a practice. You're not going to be able to do a 180 in your ability to forgive people overnight. But what I'd love to encourage you to do is to just start making a list of people that you know that you're still harboring animosity towards. And as you integrate this teaching, maybe rewatch it if you need to, drop me a comment if you want me to expand on this. As you start shifting the narrative and updating your definitions around what it means to forgive and to really start to see this as an act of self-love, as an act of taking your power back, and as an act of service, you can start applying and be able to offer forgiveness to those who have really, really hurt you. But please be gentle with yourself. Please be kind with yourself as you're applying this teaching, because again, you're updating really deeply set definitions that are just deep into your subconscious mind, and it's going to take some time. And ultimately, I know that this is going to be for some of you out there, where can you start to forgive yourself? Right? Where can you start to forgive yourself for not forgiving other people. And don't just forgive them, right? Send them blessings as well. Send them blessings for their healing. If you can get to a point where someone that hurt you in the past, you can not only forgive and make amends with, either physically or otherwise spiritually, but then bless them on their journey, you have done a deep level of transformation yourself. So I feel like that was actually quite a lot to cover in the however many 10 plus minutes that this video is going to be. I'm going to keep it short and sweet today. I really hope that this served you. I know it's a very different perspective on forgiveness, but hopefully now you can see how forgiveness is love in action, and it's one of your tools that you can use to help raise the collective frequency on this planet in addition to serving your own healing. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Kate. Do subscribe if you are into the spirituality, personal development world, and I will catch you very soon.